Hello BookTube, Sarah here and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my weekly reviews for July the 20th through the 26th. So I have 5 books this week to talk to you guys about. I am super pleased that I finished 5 books, even though 2 of them were novellas, 1 was a book I had already started, and 2 were audiobooks, but that's perfectly okay. You know, that's a lot more reading than some people get done in a month. So I am not complaining about that at all. I did have a reading week that was not the best this week, obviously. Usually I can finish like 7 books, 7 or 8 or something like that. But I did not read. If you watched my Friday reads that was just posted yesterday, I am filming this on Friday. And if you saw that video, you'll know that I did not get any reading done last weekend. It was the weekend of the Create Your Own Readathon, and I was sick all weekend. I had a massive migraine because of the heat and humidity, so it was really, really unpleasant for me all weekend. I don't think I read more than 25 pages. The 2 cozy mysteries that I had planned to read that weekend, I have since taken back to the library, and hopefully I'll get to them again at some point. But for right now, I just kind of, you know, I've got enough other things to finish on my TBR for this month. So instead of putting extra pressure on myself, I just took them back to the library. They will be there again for me to borrow at a later date if I want to. And then again, if you watch my Friday reads, you'll know that I was in Buffalo, New York on Thursday and Friday. So I did not get a lot of reading done there. I finished an audiobook on my way to Buffalo on Thursday, and I listened to a bit more of Outlander on coming home today, because I am, of course, filming this on Friday night. So yeah, not a lot of reading got done this week, but still, I finished 5 books in 3 days, so that's not too bad. Again, though, like I said, a couple of them I'd already started. One of them I definitely already started. I think the audiobook I'd already started as well. But I'm still super pleased with my progress, and yeah, I think I'm still above, like for my Goodreads goal, I think I'm still ahead of the game a little bit, so that's always good. But anyway, enough rambling. Let's get on to the reviews of the 5 books that I finished this week. So the first one that I finished was Sister of the Bride by Susan Mallery. This is a contemporary romance novel. It is book number 2.5 in the Fool's Gold series. Now, I may have mentioned in a previous video that one of my goals, or one of the things that I tend to do, excuse me, let me start this way, is that I tend to skip the novellas that are in series. It's kind of sort of on purpose because I just want to get on to the next book. And sometimes the novellas are great, and sometimes, you know, they actually contribute to the overall story. But at other times, they're just kind of put in as filler. And in this case, for this story, I feel like this one was kind of put in as filler. But I've made a list. I've gone through all the series that I'm currently working my way through, and I've looked to see which novellas I may have missed. And I've made a list, and every month I'm going to try and pick a couple of those novellas and read them so I can get kind of caught up in a way. Unless they're Christmas themed, and then I put them on a separate list of all the Christmas books that I'm hoping to get to in December. So anyway, so yeah, so that's that. But like I said, this one tended to be a bit, I felt that this one was a bit of like a more of a filler kind of novella, but I'll get into that in just a second. So this was originally published in 2010. Average rating of 3.96 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 3 stars. Well, it was a really cute story and it was really fun. Again, I didn't see the need for it within the Fool's Gold series. The only way that you knew it was a Fool's Gold story is that the character said at 1 point, or 2 points maybe, that it takes place in Fool's Gold, California. It takes place at like the ski lodge or whatever it is. So anyway, the other thing, like, you don't meet any characters. This isn't about a character that you've already met in, you know, the first 2 books or something like that, like nobody that you were introduced to. I know that our main character, Katie, this is the story of Katie and Jackson, that she lives in Fool's Gold, whereas Jackson lives, I think, in San Francisco. So the plot of this story, it's like, how long was this? I think it was like 70 pages or 80 pages. It's about Katie, and her sister, her younger sister, is getting married. And the thing is that the groom is Katie's ex-boyfriend, and Katie and him were dating when he met the sister. And sorry, I can't remember the sister's name off the top of my head. And he dumped Katie for her. And then, like, within a year, they're getting married. And it's this huge, extravagant wedding. And Katie, you know, she's going to kind of get picked on a bit by her family. Like, oh, poor Katie, you know, so-and-so is marrying your sister instead of you, kind of an idea. You know, so her mother kind of not cons her, but like urges her into getting a date for the wedding. And the date happens to be this guy by the name of Jackson, who the 2 of them met when they were teenagers. And I think Katie's actually a year or 2 older than him. But when they first met, he was a big geek, and she just thought, oh gosh, don't set me up with this computer geek. His real name is Howie, or Howard. It's Howard Jackson. And he used to go by Howie. That's what his mother still calls him. But now he just goes by Jackson. And he had glasses and braces, and, you know, he's very much into math. He runs a very successful company now. So that goes to show you guys, nerds are awesome. And can be very sexy too. Just look at Big Bang Theory. But anyway, you know, so because Jackson is her mother's best friend's son, they figured it would be a nice setup. And of course, because it's a novella and it's 80 pages long, it was very much insta love, which is not my favorite thing in the world, but you kind of have to do that in this situation. Like I said, it was a cute enough story. It was a very quick read, but I just didn't see why it was required within the Fool's Gold series. You know, it just didn't seem to fit in there for some, like, it just didn't seem to be a reason for it to be there, is my point. The next book that I finished was The American Temp and the British Inspector by Patt White. This is book number 1 in the Blackwell Agency series. This is a romantic suspense novel. It is Harlequin Intrigue number 968. Published originally in 2007. This was part of my 40 Years of Harlequin project. Average rating of 3.53 stars on Goodreads. I gave this one a solid 3.5 stars. I really liked it. This would have definitely gotten a 4-star rating from me if, and I mentioned this in one of my Friday reads when I was talking about this one, the overuse of the British slang, which, you know, we get it. The characters are from the UK. You do not need to keep using the British slang that much. So yeah, this is the story of Cassie and Max is the British inspector, and she is the American temp. And he used to work for Scotland Yard, and a year prior to the story starting, there was a bombing that he was severely injured in his hip, and he has some PTSD that he's dealing with now. So he's come stateside, and he was living in Seattle, and now he's being called on to start this elite group called the Blackwell Agency to hunt out a serial killer. So the story kind of goes from there, and Cassie comes along because she originally was hired by him to help him with writing his book. He's writing kind of his memoirs of him working within Scotland Yard, and she's kind of proofreading and helping him with that. But now that he's being sent to this to do this, like, with this agency, she is coming along to kind of help him out. And it's a really, really cute story. I really enjoyed it. And I mentioned this also, I think, in that Friday reads, that he really reminds me of the character House from the television show House. You know, he's very sarcastic, he's very tongue-in-cheek, he can come off as being very rude and condescending, but he's really not. He does have a soft side to him. And yeah, I really like Cassie. She had a really great backstory. She comes from an abusive relationship, and, you know, both of the characters were very interesting, very well thought out. You do meet other characters that you're going to meet in the next books in this series, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing on with this one. I really, really liked it. And this is one of my favorite covers. I don't know what it is about that cover, but I absolutely love it. It just feels so James Bond to me. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so I really, really like this one. The next one that I finished was Living Dead in Dallas by Charlaine Harris. This is a paranormal romance novel, book number 2 in the Sookie Stackhouse series. This was narrated on audio by Joanna Parker, published originally in 2002. Average rating of 3.98 stars on Goodreads. I gave this one 3.5 stars. This one was a fun story. Now, I read this one, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I was originally going to read the Gina Showalter, the first book in her Lords of the Underworld series, The Darkest Night, I think it was called, and I just couldn't get into it. So I ended up deciding to pick this one up. This one was for Romanceopoly, for the Warrior's Way prompt, I think, which is to read something about a band of warriors. And in my opinion, the characters in this book are a band of vampire warriors, or vampires themselves. So I like this one. In this one, Sookie is kind of hired to go to Dallas, Texas. Most of the series takes place in this small parish community in Louisiana, to hunt out some vampires that are doing some very bad things, or some people that are doing some very bad things. Because Sookie has an ability, even though she's not a vampire, but she's dating a vampire named Bill, which just cracks me up every time. And she has a telepathic ability that she knows what people are thinking. So they hire her, they kind of hire her and send her out there to find out what's happening to these vampires, because there's this church that is started that is trying to redeem these vampires, that if they go out in the sunlight and then turn to ash, that they will be redeemed and be able to go to, and they will die and go to heaven, kind of an idea, right? So it does have like some very religious undertones to it in that aspect. I mean, not anything to do with any, you know, religion, but you're quite seeing like the aspects of a very fundamental type, or a cult. Not even that. I shouldn't say religion. It's a cult. Not a cult, but a cult. So yeah, I mean, it was good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The narration on this is really, really good. I really like the narrator who does this series. Unfortunately, these are not available on the Audible Escape package, but they are all available on Scribd or Scribed, or however you want to say it. So that's where I've been listening to them. But yeah, I absolutely do recommend this series. I am not, you guys probably know, I'm not huge into paranormal romance, but this is a fun series because it is a little tongue-in-cheek. It is, you know, Sookie is a great character. I mean, she's a little over the top, you know, they kind of, it's told in first person, and she comes off as kind of a ditzy blonde in some aspects, but she is very intelligent. I think that's what makes the series work. And I have never actually watched True Blood, but I do know that it was, is it Anna Paquin who plays Sookie Stackhouse? I think they picked a really good actress to play her, knowing her previous work. And yeah, I do understand that the series itself, the television show, tends to be a lot more graphically violent. Now, the books are graphically violent in a way, but they are not explicit in adult content as much. There is quite a bit of adult content, but a lot of it is fade to black or behind closed doors. So yeah, so it is an enjoyable series, and I like it a lot. And then the next one that I finished was All Hallows Eve by Heather Graham. This is another paranormal romance book. Book number 17.5 in the Crew of Hunters series. So this was fun to get to this novella in the series that I missed. Originally published in 2015. Average rating of 4.16 stars on Goodreads. I gave this one 4 stars. This one really creeped me out. I was reading this one at night on, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday, and Garrett was at work, and I had to stop reading it because I was kind of creeping myself out a little bit. So it's about a killer who is working in Salem, Massachusetts over Halloween. Need I say more? So you are not meeting new characters in this story. What I really like about the novellas in the Crew of Hunters series is that she takes already established characters that you met in previous books, and she is giving them a new case, essentially. And that's the brilliance of the Crew of Hunters series, is that you can revisit these characters like 100 times over, each set of characters, and there can be all these different cases, like as many as Heather Graham can dream up, or as many as that can be written, and this series would never get stale. I mean, as long as you're okay with going back and revisiting old characters. Now, that being said, you don't necessarily have to have read the previous books in this series to get this one. It's like sitting down and watching an X-Files episode or something like that, if I can use that as an explanation. That yes, there is an overall mythology, there is an overall, you know, kind of background to this story of what these stories represent, but you're not missing anything by just watching one episode out of context. You know what I mean? And because, again, this is a novella, it comes in at, I think, about 125 pages. Really, really readable, really great. And all of the novellas, and you often see this with novellas in longer running series, that the novellas tend to take place at the holidays, like at Christmas or what have you. Whereas all of the ones from the Crew of Hunters series always take place at Halloween, and I think that's just delightful. I would love to see one that takes place at Christmas, because I think that would be a lot of fun too. But yeah, this one was really, really enjoyable. If you are looking to dip your toes into the Crew of Hunters universe without, you know, going ahead and picking up a 300 or 400 page full-length novel, dip into one of the novellas. Yes, you will get spoiled for a couple that will end up together, but as I always say about romance novels, most of the time, the couple that meet in that first chapter are the couple that end up together at the end. So that part of it's not the surprise, it's the journey that's the enjoyable part. You know what I mean? And the last book that I finished this week was All He Ever Dreamed by Shannon Stacey. This was a contemporary romance novel. Book number 5 in the Kowalski family series. Narrated on audio by Lauren Fontgang, published originally in 2013. Average rating of 4.06 stars on Goodreads. I gave this one 4 stars. This one was really enjoyable. So this is an offshot of the original brothers of the Kowalski family. These are their cousins. And this series takes place in Maine. And this is the story of Josh and Katie. And Josh and Katie have been best friends since they were kids. And Katie has been in love with him since they were kids. And Josh never saw her as more than one of the guys. And he has kind of been burdened down with running the family's ski lodge. And, you know, the whole family, him and his siblings, all inherited inherited it when their parents passed away. But because he was the youngest, the burden fell on him as all of his siblings kind of took off and went about and did their own lives. And he always felt like he had to stay and run the lodge. And he's always wanted to venture out and see what the world held and see what else he could possibly do with his life. And then one thing leads to another. This one does take place over Christmas. Him and Katie have a rendezvous and become friends with benefits. And then, you know, the question arises is now there's a chance to actually sell the lodge. Does he want to sell it and go away, or does he want to stay with Katie? And I really liked the way that it ended. I really, really liked the situations that happened toward the end that kind of made them realize how much they care about each other. Again, you knew they were going to end up at the beginning. Like, you know, it's, again, the journey on how they got there. And I really, really liked the way that it played out, that there were no regrets, that there were nothing like that. It was really fantastic. I do love this series. I love Shannon and Stacey. And if you are looking for a good family-centric, small-town romance series to get into, this isn't terribly long. I think there's 8 books in total in this series. I absolutely recommend that you go ahead and check it out. So anyway, guys, that is everything that I read this week. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what did you think about them. Or, you know, are you interested in picking up any of these ones? Or what was your favorite book that you read this week? And until my next video, everybody, take care and happy reading. Thank you all so very much for watching. Bye, guys.